Good morning once again. There was this term in the 60s when I was growing up. It's called the generation gap. Yeah, some of you probably remember that. It was that difference between us and them, us and the older generation. And probably nothing defines it more than music. I can remember growing up, the kind of stuff I liked, the kind of stuff my dad liked. I was just thinking the other day, for some reason he came home and he gave me this album that had like New Orleans jazz on it, which really wasn't my thing. It had 76 trombones on there as well, if you remember that song. And it's funny because it's like, no, that's not my music. You know, I would have preferred something like the Beatles or the Monkees or Herman's Hermits or something like that. But my dad listened to Herb Alpert and Dave Brubeck and Kenny Ball and some other folks like that. Listened to some Sinatra. Well, it's funny, I really wasn't into the 76 trombones. But as the years go by, I really do like Kenny Ball and I do like Frank Sinatra. And I definitely like some Herb Alpert and I love Dave Brubeck. How does that happen? Jackson Browne wrote a song in the mid-70s. I think it's called Daddy's Tune. And he says, so kind of, in case you don't know, 45s were a type of record that my generation listened to singles on, and 78's what our parents did. But he said, make room for my 45s along beside your 78's, because nothing survives except the way we live our lives. As we get older, somehow that generation gap doesn't seem as much, does it? With Father's Day around the corner, think about that. I certainly miss my dad, but I think how we can connect from generation to generation. And for those of you that know me know that that's really been a big part of the story of my life, is trying to connect with younger generations. And I don't know that I do it near as well as I used to. I can still attempt to do that. But there's a really cool verse, and it happens to be the last verse in the Old Testament. And then there's hundreds of years of silence, so to speak, before we get to the New Testament. And that verse is a very intriguing one. And here's what it says. And it's referring to Elijah, but it's sort of code word, so to speak, for John the Baptist, who was the forerunner for Jesus. But I think it would really apply to either one of them. There's something that's really important to preaching. There's a lot of things that are important, but here's an important component. And I've always taken it seriously and tried to be kind of part of this. Here's what it says. Final verse, final revelation, Old Covenant. His preaching, referring to John the Baptist, Jesus, or whomever would take up his mantle, will turn the hearts of the fathers to their children and the hearts of the children to their fathers. It's Malachi 4:6. It's simple, but it's profound, isn't it? Those moments where instead of there being a generation gap, there's a generation bridge. I hope that whoever you are today, whether your dad is still here or whether, whatever stage of life you're in, that we find a better way to connect with our dads and a better way to connect with our sons and our daughters. It's in God's heart as the Heavenly Father to connect with us, to be close to us. And sometimes, I think about it, if you talk to me about the Heavenly Father when I was a young guy, I always believed in God, but I was kind of like, that's not so cool. And now, looking at this Father's Day, 2020, can't think of anything cooler than being close with my Heavenly Father. God bless you. May you know His blessing today.